Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here this evening as the Edmonton Oilers get settled in to battle Seattle. I knew I was going to screw up my own line. We got through it. We almost stumbled, but we avoided disaster as the Oilers hopefully will, with a rash of preseason injuries waving across the NHL as the big boys get prepared to suit up and play most of the final two games of this NHL preseason on the schedule. So for the Oilers, obviously Seattle the opponent tonight, Vancouver a little later on, and then we're up and done and ready for Monday to submit the opening night roster. So we'll see how that all plays out at current. There are two main battles plus a third within the Oilers roster to try and construct who will be where in the opening night lineup October 9th against Winnipeg. Before we get too much further though, friends, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. Just simply, I know I've been hitting this hard all preseason. For those of you that tune in day and day out, thank you so much. Appreciate that. The only reason I'm hitting this so hard is we've got a heck of a hockey season coming up. And hey, if you can get the latest sooner, hey, that just suits everybody that much more, doesn't it? So what do we know about those battles? We've got the fourth line center role. We've got the 13th forward. And we've, of course, got the defense. So depends how you break it down. I tried to make it as clear as I could yesterday in the video discussing the latest cuts, but there's really no making it clear. The Oilers have a multitude of options when it comes to figuring out how to do it. Obviously, there's a couple different salaries they can cut, play with the numbers, manipulate it a little bit more than maybe we figure, right? It's pretty dry and cut and paste when it comes to how they should do it mathematically, but there's a couple different ways that they could that leave intrigue available, right? If the Oilers simply go 6 defensemen, you go Emberson 2 right D, you go Stetcher 3 right D, you cut Brown to the minors, you can kind of start playing with numbers up front and possibly have 14 forwards up front if you really want to leave yourself short-handed on the cap space, at least to begin the year. Again, that is a very unlikely scenario. That said, cutting Josh Brown, I don't know if that's necessarily a very unlikely scenario in and of itself. I think the biggest scenario is you see 13D and you might see 13 forwards and 7D. You see Josh Brown cut, saving that $1 million against the cap, sign Travis Dermott, bang, now all of a sudden you've saved, $225, and so that 13th forward isn't cutting your cap near as much as they would be if you had Josh Brown instead of Travis Dermott. That said, there's still time for all that to change. There's still time for that to work out different ways, and who cares? But for the sake of argument, I think carrying a 21-player roster is the way the Edmonton Oilers will roll it out, at least to begin, just simply because of the cap space. You save close to that. I don't know truly what the number will come in kind of when they submit the opening night roster. I think it's somewhere between 900 and $1 million in cap space available at the start of the year with Evander Kane on IR. But again, that's where you have to have the discussion on the fourth line center role and cutting down to 6D. Because if you go 13, 14 forwards, right, do you say that Noah Philp wins the fourth line center role? Derek Ryan's your 13th forward. Raphael Lavoie's on waivers. Do you go Derek Ryan's your fourth line center? Raphael Lavoie wins. Noah Philp's reassigned. That's a pretty easy, tidy, clean way of doing it. And I assume that's the way it's going to be done if the Oilers choose to keep 13 forwards. Now, if they choose to keep 6D, obviously that maps out nice. Now, if they choose to go both ways, they still can do Raphael Lavoie up there if they keep somebody up. But again, pressure on the cap space. So you look at it, 14 forwards. Do you keep all of Derek Ryan, Noah Philp, and Mr. Raphael Lavoie up? You can. You have to sacrifice Josh Brown, and you have to manipulate the cap a little bit there. But, it's all doable, right? I think that's the crazy part of this right now. For the Oilers, everything is still on the table. And I think that's kind of what we're just waiting on at this point is some indication here, right? We've pared down camp to almost nothing at this point. Calvin Pickard was skating a day, and it really comes down to we are almost ready to go here. It is a week time until we get going on the ice, and it's 5 days until we submit the opening night roster. But as we know for the Oilers over the past few years, we usually have to wait until 3 hours after deadline of submission to figure out what our roster is to begin the year, what the opening cap submission is for the Edmonton Oilers. We've waited some lengthy times after the day is kind of passed us by. So the fact it's on a Monday maybe gives us hope that it'll be better. The fact that it's maybe not a holiday Monday, whatever the case might be, it's fair game. But it's very interesting, and I think, if you're an Oilers fan at all interested in figuring out who's going to fill out the roster for you, 100% these last two preseason games are worthwhile watching, but I don't think there's anything to be solved. I don't think you're going to convince the people that think Noah Philp should be the fourth line center over Derek Ryan. I don't think you're going to convince them flip-flop. I don't think Derek Ryan over Noah Philp. You're going to convince those people to flip-flop. I think the people like me who believe that Raphael Lavoie has to be kept on the NHL roster, at least to begin the season, I don't think you're going to change my mind very much. I know there is obviously a lot of options I've laid out that I really much so like too, that, hey, I wouldn't mind seeing him go down on waivers, but how this all plays out at the end of the day is just going to be kind of one of those things that it'll be what it'll be. And we probably, like I said, won't know until hours after submission, because with the Oilers having a potential LTIR usage available, there are a lot of ways they could manipulate this, especially with Roby or Venti on the season opening IR. There's a lot of puzzle pieces here, and keeping track of it all is fun, but I think the fact that we've still got 3 roster spots up for grabs, technically speaking, 1 extra player off the opening night lineup, and then of course fourth line center and third line right D is very interesting to see how it all shakes down, and I'm excited to see how it pans out. So, I mean, there's probably even more combinations available to us than this, but hey, at the end of the day, this is the way I'm seeing it, and I hope this has at least been somewhat informative, somewhat useful to you, and kind of playing with some numbers, and go over on Puckpedia and start figuring it out, which combination you like the most, how you want the Oilers to deploy it. And as we get through tonight's game, which again, it's an 8 p.m. game, a preseason game, I'm not going to be sacrificing sleep to be staying up on that one, because overall, as I've stated several times, I really don't care about this preseason. Get me to the NHL regular season. Let's rack up 53 wins and let's go get back into the playoffs ASAP. That's really my goal for the winter, is just blink and it goes by. But yeah, I mean, end of the day, there's still 2 games that are going to determine these couple of positions. So stay tuned. We'll have updates as it goes on. Obviously, nobody's been claimed on waivers off the Oilers yet, so that's good news as well. We'll see what happens here as the day goes on and into tomorrow. Thanks for being aboard here on Dolynny TV. I will catch you as usual tomorrow sometime in the evening as we get set up for a big day. Probably a roster cut or 2 coming following tonight's game. I'm up on Odie here. Have a great night, everybody.